Hello, Interesting Dubazana here. Our second recording for Dubazana Tenny's YouTube page. So it's been about maybe 2 weeks since we put up our introductory video, and we have had a few comments on what people would like to talk about. Um, as promised, we would go through them and see what is more, pertinent to talk about and what people want to hear. So far, there's literally been a comment based on customary marriages and also a comment that deals with freedom of speech. So today, we thought, how about we deal with customary marriages? Because seems to be a very sensitive topic in our country, and it seems like there's not enough knowledge around customary marriages. And as a result, I thought perhaps let us actually get into it and what the intricacies of customary marriages are. So let's start with what we normally know. What happens in customary marriages? And Tabby saying an ex, they decide that they are in love, they want to spend the rest of their life together, and then they want to show or rather follow customs from their different, cultural groups. And then Mahadi Antiwa, aka Lobola, and aka Dowry, we're going to do it in English. They'll use the term English, that is. And then what happens thereafter, there's a lot of things, ceremonies that usually happen, handing over of the bride, agere, and then, ho loitswa stebe, kai, la celebrate, ho hlajwa dikgomo, kapo dinku, kapo dipudi, depending which, custom that is being celebrated at the time. And then Kamuramono Mosadi usually Watamaya goes and gets handed over to the family of the groom, and then thereafter husband and wife are now, united and can now proceed with marriage, and with their married life rather. So now the question that is big these days is that enough? Is the fact that Mahadi Antitwe enough for me to say that I have been married? And to answer that question, yes. Even if the amount that was paid was 50 bucks and the Mahadi was 100,000, it is sufficient in our law to say that you're married. And not only are you married, you're married in community of property. So maybe the next topic should be dealing with the different marriage regimes, because that's another topic on its own. Having an ANC, getting married out of community of property, etc., etc. One thing I do need to emphasize, because I'm talking about the various aspects, or rather various marriages that are available in our country. You cannot, I repeat, you cannot pay Mahadi and then enter into an antenuptial contract. That ANC will be null and void because you are already married in the eyes of the law, right? So where do I get my information from? That's another thing. So as an attorney, you cannot just suck information, right? So I have done myself the service of making sure that I get as much information as possible so I don't feed the public wrong information. So my library is kind of not that big, but it is big enough for the kind of laws that I practice in my firm. So this is the book that I get my information from. It gets updated, almost every 2 to 3 weeks. And as a result, the laws that change are in here. And this is where we get where different courts have decided, how do you quantify or qualify a customary marriage, or any marriage for that matter, and what the courts have said, and the directions in which we're going to look at this, right? So there are different aspects here. I just wanted to highlight that there's different things that we look at in terms of recognizing the marriage and all of those things. Obviously, you have to be of age to give consent. You have to go ask the father of the bride. You know how it is in movies that you go and ask permission from dad to marry, and Tabi saying, yeah, it's recognized in our law as well that you need to go and ask dad, all of those things, So the requirements for entry into customary marriage, you need to have capacity, which means you have to be of age, right? You need to have consent of the bridegroom and of the bride, obviously, consent of the father or the guardian, payment of igazi or lobola or mahadi. Okay? And then equivalent of cattle paid as mahadi, the handing over of the bride, the evidentiary value of non-essential customs are also looked in, because the other customs they're not recognized by our law, our customary laws, because we don't know too much of them. But that specific group of people, whether it is the Zulu nation, Basotho, the Xhosa nation, etc., they have their different ways that are not necessarily recognized in our law, but they are there in order for them to say that there is a marriage, but it's not compulsory in our law, right? And then you need to register your customary marriage. That is very important. We'll get to that, but you have to register your customary marriage. It is not necessary. Really, it isn't necessary that you have to go and have a civil marriage after you do a traditional wedding. Go and register the customary marriage and you're married, and then life goes on. Please, you don't have to do double weddings unless you've got the money. But anyway, we need to also look at the age of majority, like I've said, determination of age of anyone allegedly a minor. So just now Tabise wants to get married, but actually she's a minor, and then that becomes a bit of a problem. So I think what has always been a question that I've been asked, Kohore, if half mahadi has been paid, is it a marriage? If certain traditional things were not made, like nyoko, kapo, handing over of the bride, all of those things, if such things were not done, does it really qualify as a marriage in terms of customary law? And like I said in the beginning of this video, yes, it does qualify as a marriage. So I'm going to read here so that it kind of makes a little bit of sense. It says, the evidentiary value of non-essential customs, right? It says, neither the mahadi ceremony nor the slaughtering of a beast nor a duly party is necessary for entry into a customary marriage. Now, the case law for this was in 1939, by the way. It is still applicable to this day, which was also confirmed in 1947 in the case of Mbanga versus Sikolaki and one Libenya versus Mosola. These are the cases that quantify what exactly is a marriage if these things are not done. So basically, even if opatetse half a cup of 50 rand or 50 cents, you are married, and you're married in community of property. It goes on to say, however, the fact, if it is a fact, that these customs were observed and are customary amongst the tribe in question, can be of value in evidence if proof is required to determine whether a customary marriage did take place. So the pictures we take when we are doing our customary marriages, if these things, lenyalo lahau and all of those things, and then 5 years down the line, a year down the line, you feel like, I want to break up with this so and so. If these things were done, those pictures are used as evidentiary proof that it was done, but it isn't necessary for it to be done for the marriage to be recognized by law, right? And this is confirmed by Kerr under Customary Law 17. So these things that we are mentioning a lot when we say, and I don't know why, but it seems horrible, but Babona have reduced customary marriages to be engagements. I know, malobola and all of those things, so we will be getting married. No, the second Mahadi and Siso, you are already married. It's not an engagement. And if the relationship fails, if the relationship fails, it doesn't mean that you walk away and then life goes on, because whatever marriage you enter into after that is null and void because you haven't divorced this side. Please, let's get that notion out of our head. Yahore, the marriage, the lobola is actually an engagement. It is a marriage. It is a 100% bona fide marriage. All right. Now, there were changes that were done, after 20th November 2000. So Section 3 Sub 1A of the Act, right? It says, In the case of customary marriages entered into after the commencement of the act, the prospective spouses must be over the age of 18. So you don't be marrying a 16-year-old. It's now viewed in so many ways. You'll end up being charged with rape, which is another topic on its own. Other subsections deal with the prospective spouses who are minors with special written consent to marry given by the Minister of Home Affairs. I don't think you want to go that route. Stick to 18 years and above, please. The requirement that the marriages must be negotiated and entered into or celebrated in accordance with customary law will require courts and registering officers to draw a distinction between what is usually done and what is legal, what is a legal requirement, in the sense that if it is not fulfilled, there is no customary marriage. And then it says examples of ceremonies normally performed but not essential are given, right? Examples of them are relating to negotiations were raised in the case of Mabena and Letswalo. So this is what we were talking about earlier. The customs, how do you say it? What does it mean? So a lot of us out there, I think, are very much still married. We need to go back and nullify those marriages, basically get them divorced. Because if people start understanding what customary marriages are, whatever you've acquired with your current wife, your current husband, can be taken away from you, from the person who paid mahadi previously in the event of death. And even right now, they can come and claim everything. So please, let's go back and rectify our situations that we left hanging, right? And then I said earlier that I want to touch on registration of customary marriages. It is so important for those to be registered, because upon divorce, but particularly upon death, it becomes a little bit harder to prove a marriage, especially if the family members of the deceased, whether it's the wife or the husband, want a claim or a stake to the deceased estate, and they now are not willing to give you affidavits to confirm that there was a marriage, or you didn't have pictures, and as a result, you can't prove all of these things. It becomes a little bit harder to prove that there's a marriage in order for you to inherit from the estate. Now, this now brings me to the importance of registering our customary marriages. So the Act imposes a duty on all spouses in customary marriages to ensure that their marriage is registered by a registering officer within a year. You have 12 months. You don't have an excuse. 12 months to go and register your marriage, right? And then within 3 months after entering into the marriage, my apologies, I'm reading this wrong, by registering with an officer within a year after the commencement of the act, right? If their marriages were entered into before the commencement of the act, so before 2000. If your marriage was before 2000, you have a whole year to go and register your marriage. But otherwise, 3 months after the actual ceremony, you have to go and register your marriage, right? And then it reads further. In both cases, the period may be extended by the minister by notice in the Gazette. So we need to keep our eyes open for that. It's free. So just be able to find out now what's happening, and just research. Research is very important. Persons other than spouses who have sufficient interest in the matter may ask a registering officer to register a marriage not previously registered. The registering officer issues a certificate which constitutes prima facie proof of the marriage and the particulars in it. A high court or a family court has power to order the registration of a customary marriage or the cancellation or rectification of its registration. Non-registration does not affect the validity of the marriage. That's very, very important. Just because it's not registered doesn't mean it's not a valid marriage. It just makes our lives easier when you come to us as attorneys to finalize a deceased estate, or for divorces, that there's a certificate that confirms the marriage, and then we just proceed with the next step. But it doesn't nullify the marriage. Please, it doesn't nullify the marriage, okay? And there's a penalty laid down in the Act for failing to register. That's another thing. But if non-registration leads to inconvenience in relation to other matters, this may induce spouses to register their marriages. So the relevant section in the Customary Marriages Act will be section 4 that deals with everything that I've just mentioned on. So when you have time, go through the Customary Marriages Act and then see section 4, which then gives you all these things that that I just mentioned in terms of registration of your marriage. So, based on the little information I have given you, I hope it'll help you deal with things that are coming your way. And we will talk to you soon. Again, comment at the bottom for another topic that you'd like. Thank you for watching.